I'd like to thank IoM Solutions for an opportunity. It really is important for us as politicians to have the opportunity of seeing so many people in one small space and to try and get a message across to all of you. I will talk a bit about IoM, but more importantly about the Isle of Man and the economy at the moment. And certainly what IoM have done with their branding of excellence is something which we will continue to aspire to across the whole of the Isle of Man. The financial services sector, who are probably the predominant number of people represented here this evening, will always be the bedrock of our success. So you have our assurance that the 010 is secure, that finance is still going to be the way forward for the Isle of Man. But the professional services that IoM Solutions and others provide builds around a much wider, diverse economy. So we are constantly, like IoM, looking for opportunities and looking for growth. So we are continually looking at the opportunity that says the Isle of Man, either domestically, as with some of the solutions you've heard tonight, dealing with people who are already resident on the island, or whether it is travelling off to China and everywhere in between. There is an enormous amount of business out there. There's an enormous amount of optimism on the Isle of Man about what we can achieve. So when I hear Sheila talk about the growth, that's what the Isle of Man needs to do. Across a whole range of our sectors, we need the higher population to actually build our construction industry back again, to actually support the hospitality and the retail trades. But more importantly, we need to actually build it on excellence. So when I travel, it is, and I'm sure Steve Brennan and others through representing the Isle of Man government, it is something that we are immensely proud of the quality of our private sector. I was down in London a week and a half ago at the fund managers. Now the funds have got issues, that it's a difficult time out there. But the number of Manxies down there selling the message for the Isle of Man was heartwarming. You then go further afield and find that whether it's the aircraft, the shipping, the e-gaming, whether it be just the finance sector or the Isle of Man brand, is recognised increasingly around the world. So we are looking at growth in nearly all sectors. You will have heard possibly of the 2020 vision, which is going to be launched in January, and that is based on what you as an industry have told the government you believe is the future. We understand the areas that will struggle, we understand some will be consolidating, but we also understand there's growth. So we will be launching that in January through the Chief Minister, and that is our expectation of where we go over the next 5, 10, 15 years. We have identified a number of growth areas, and some of you may even be involved in the Biomed conference next week. If you're not, keep an eye on that one, because that's a very exciting new niche that we have real opportunities in. The ICT area is one where we at the moment really do not exploit the real e-business opportunities, and that, like finance, has a knock-on effect on so many other industries we can do on the island. We are open for business. We are in growth, and the argument that I have put down to Council of Ministers is if you leave me alone and I basically just carry on doing what we're doing today, I would estimate, based on information, 3 to 4% growth next year. That's without some of the new initiatives. We have been so conservative in that prediction because there are a whole range of areas that IoM and other companies here represented can manage and exploit. All of our predictions about where we would have been at the moment employment-wise, we are actually better than we feared we would be at this stage. We still, however, have a major challenge. That challenge is the economic rebalancing. The revenues with the 010 economy means that we have got to grow more and more successfully and smart. So we have major challenges in government, and you'll have heard this week about the Chief Minister's announcement about the restructuring. It isn't tinkering, it is actually saying that the changes we have hoped would happen have not materialised within government as quickly as we would have liked. The new reformed Cabinet Office will effectively give power to Alan Bell and the Chief Secretary to try and drive some of these changes through. But please do not fall into the trap of listening to some of the hype out there. The government has held down now the wage bill for 3 years. We have lost over 400 jobs within government. We have restructured in a way which has looked at the pensions of civil servants and politicians. And we have looked at a whole raft of areas that have been done without causing a major shock to the economy or to the lifestyle on the Isle of Man. And any of you, all of you, will have friends and family who work for government, and they will realise that it's not actually as easy as it previously may have been thought to be. So we will keep on doing our job, which is through Eddie T and his team to drive down the cost and the scale and size of government, to balance the budget to make sure that we can only live within what we can afford. We will have all of the members of Tynwald looking after the vulnerable members of our society in what is going to be a big, big challenge with the ageing population that we've all heard so much about. But collectively in this room and many other rooms around Douglas and around the island, we have the ability with the government and yourselves to actually grow jobs, to grow the economy, to grow the confidence which is important, and to actually make sure that the excellence that you strive for in IoM is something that is mirrored in everything that we do in our proposition. And I really am proud of the business community on the Isle of Man across all the sectors, because when we bring the Chinese parties to the Isle of Man, when we bring other people from London to the Isle of Man, the biggest criticism they've got is they haven't heard about us, because everything that they experience when they get here reassures them that this is where they are interested in doing business. So we have got a major job in actually getting out there, selling the message, the Isle of Man open for business. But you have my assurance that when those people come to the Isle of Man, they are more than satisfied with the quality that you and your colleagues provide. Hopefully all of you tune in avidly at 7:30 every morning to Manx Radio. Blank face. That's. I ought to ask you now, what tuning station is that on? Manx Radio, you should have heard that we are extremely optimistic that the BA City Flyer will be reinstituted into London City from a seamless changeover between the Gatwick slots in Flybe, the end of March time. There will be business routes and for a full day's business down in London or your clients coming up to the Isle of Man. You should be confident that we have an ability to actually be very, very successful. And as I've said a number of times, we aren't greedy. We don't need to be looking for business everywhere. A reasonable level of business across a diverse jurisdictional and sectoral way of doing things gives the Isle of Man the quality of life that we all appreciate so much. So for what you've done so far as a business industry, I thank you. From IoM Solutions, the opportunity to try and give you what I hope is an honest but genuine assessment. I'm grateful for your growth that you're bringing to our island. I did hear all those things about Jersey, and the whole idea about bringing business to the Isle of Man is a byproduct of keeping your clients happy. If your clients need to open in Malta or need to open in Jersey, or dare I say it in BVI, that's what your clients need. They rely upon you to provide them with what they see as in their best interests. And once they can trust you to provide what they require, you will win them over to the Isle of Man and we will get the growth that way. And I would far prefer to be you winning the hearts and minds of your clients and then encouraging them to grow on the Isle of Man rather than trying to be a sales pitch and say, you've got to do everything through us. That will come. That's the long game. There is no short-termism in this. We are going to have difficult years in government. I hope that some of you are beginning to see that in the business community there is that optimism coming back. And when I look at my colleagues in the Council of Ministers, I sometimes feel very guilty about working in a department as ambitious as Department of Economic Development. I could go on, but if you'll forgive me, I will stop at that point. But I'll be around for a while if anybody's got any special questions. But tonight, Sheila, John and the whole team, congratulations, keep doing what you're doing, and we thank you very much from government.